Hey guys, this is Phoenix and today I'm going to show you a voiceover tutorial on how to draw skulls. This is my first voiceover tutorial and I'm actually not really sure what I'm doing here, but I hope you will find it helpful anyways. So let's start. Firstly, some tools you will need. A pencil, sketch paper and an eraser. I can recommend anything from HB to 2B for pencil sketches. Secondly, before you begin to draw, you should find a good reference. You can look at drawings of skulls, you can get a real skull like mine here, or you can just find some photos of skulls. You use all of these to learn. Don't worry, it's not the neighbor. I've bought this for around $10 at the dollar store around Halloween. Try to imagine every object you want to draw as something that consists of geometrical shapes. A square, a rectangle, a circle, an ellipsis, and a triangle. Which can you find? Of course, there are different ways to do that. I'm just showing you how I would do it. Now these are the two shapes I have found. Of course, you could find more, but try not to make it too complicated when jotting down that first sketch of an object. Always start with a very light drawing and never go into details too early. You will make mistakes you cannot fix. Let's get the proportions down first. Just begin with a circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's even better if it's not. Imagine that the skull consists of 3 parts. Now think of that circle divided by half, like this. The circle already contains 2/3 of the skull. The last third is the jaw. So let's just take the radius, this is this distance here, and add it under the drawing. So that would be roughly here. Just draw a thin horizontal line. Now we need to connect the jaw to the rest of the head. Just go to the middle of the circle on the right side and just go down a bit. And then imagine that this part is a trapezoid. So just go down a bit from here and let's draw a trapezoid shape that connects this with this part. And the same here. That's a nice way to see if you're on the same line, if you don't have a ruler. Try to make it symmetrical. The jaw looks a bit off now. This is why we're going to take something off around the edges, to indicate the chin. Now let's draw a vertical line right in the middle of the skull. This line helps us to find symmetry in our drawing. Now we have jotted down the rough proportions of our skull. We still need the eye sockets and the nose and the mouth. Let's begin with the nose, because it's in the middle and it helps us to find the other things. Imagine that the nose tip sits right where these two lines meet. That's the circle line and the vertical line. So this would be the nose tip. So the nose has to end here. And what shape can you find? It's a triangle, of course. Let's draw this triangle in here, and it ends roughly here. Just make a sketch, don't use too much pressure. You will want to correct it and to add some details later. The eyes sit somewhere here. The eyes are roughly 2 ellipses. So let's draw an ellipsis here and an ellipsis here. Make it symmetrical with the other side. Just get rid of the mess. And we still need a mouth. Let's begin with the jaw bones. The bones on the side of the jaw are very thin. Then, around the chin, there is a thicker bone. And it connects into the jaw bones, which are here and here. Just imagine these are round here. Let's work our way up. So make them really pronounced and symmetrical on the other side. And they become a bit thinner around the eye socket again. Now we roughly have the form of the skull, but it's still lacking teeth. I'm showing you a very easy way to draw teeth, and maybe we can go back to them in a later tutorial. Around these edges, just draw a thin line down. Here and here. Just imagine these are 4 quarters. These are the teeth that are further behind. 2 quarters are the frontal teeth, and another quarter with the teeth behind. And there's already our middle line. We can draw in another line in between, like that. And you can see it already looks a bit like teeth. Right in the middle, draw a horizontal line. It should go up a bit around the edges, but in the front it should be horizontal. It imitates the form of this jawbone. 4 frontal teeth. There is 1 tooth that is a bit longer on each side, and some teeth behind. And just like the teeth sit in the gum, they also sit in the bones, so it should look a bit similar. Make the edges a bit rounder, give them some more form. There's a sharper one here on the edges, some smaller ones. And when you draw these teeth, imagine there are trapezoids as well. They are a bit thinner where they connect with the jawbone, and then become broader. Thinner, broader. Thinner and broader. And there are the edge teeth, which are a bit sharper. No, that looks really dramatic, but I hope you can see what I'm getting at. That's what a tooth should look like. This is where it sits in the gum. As you can see, if you want to make it really ugly, don't make them too proportional, don't make them look too symmetrical on both sides. Make them really sharp and a lot of edges and a lot of black in between. And this looks already really dangerous. But I'm not going for dangerous today. I've been thinking of doing that in a different tutorial, if you want to have that. So that's what it could look like. Let's continue now with the nose. If you have a look at the nose, we still have the triangular geometrical shape. Check your reference and you will see that the shape is a bit different. This is not an anatomic reference, but this is the closest I could get here. Maybe I'll upgrade sometime later. But it's very close. You can see here the very abstract triangular shape. Here, however, it's more like a heart upside down. There's a very thin, spiky bone missing here. You can see that if you have a look at other anatomical reference. Now let's draw this. So this one is a bit rounder than in our sketch. And this one is round, goes up here. Very thin bone. Don't make it too perfect. Draw in some edges, not too many. But if you have a look at bones, they are not perfect. They all have some blemishes and some cuts, and yeah, they actually really look nasty and dirty. Lastly, let's have a look at those eyes. In the eyes there's a bone which goes like this. It roughly follows the shape of the nose. If you have problems making that symmetrical, remember it doesn't have to be perfect. So that looks quite good already. Now we have to fix how our trapezoid works into the circular shape. And have a look at that skull. Here are very harsh lines, and there are holes in here. These are the ears. So we have a part, the forehead, which is set onto the rest. If you see it from the side, that would be the trapezoid shape, and here would be our circular shape. And we can use these 2 lines here. So there would be a small edge here, and then it would go up a bit. This is connected. Make sure that this is not too round, because heads aren't that round. Just make it a bit flatter, broader, and give it some edges. Not too many, but remember that the human skull is made of different bone plates. They have to grow together in the teenage years, and then they form these little dents, so skulls are not perfectly round. So this goes down here a bit too. This is where the head would be connected to the neck. Where the teeth go into the skull, you can see where the roots are in the skull. So just draw in some minor lines. They give some structure, and maybe also finish the teeth. Those are not perfect skull teeth. Maybe we're going to do another tutorial on that if you want to see that. I'm just tracing here, no new magic. So these are more pointy. Then in the nose we can add some more details. The eye sockets are not completely black holes, but there's something going on here. You see there's a bit of bone you can see, and of course the skull has some inside tooth, and you would need to draw that too. So it really goes in there. This is the front layer, and then we have a second layer here, and also some more bones here. And you can use that for shading later, because you can shade that a bit lighter than this background. We are almost there. The jaw has an inside. Let's just trace the outlines. And some bones are missing here. You see there is no connection. It's just hanging in thin air. Now that actually looks pretty decent, doesn't it? Good job! Adding details to our outline requires a closer look at the texture of such a skull. I can show you in my reference. There are those thin lines where the bones grew together, and you also have some scratches and little holes and some dark areas and things like that. But there are some holes here we can use, and we can try to make those edges a bit sharper. So there's an edge, really sharp. There's a hole here. There's some darkness here. Let's draw in some of those lines. Don't make them go down too far, and don't make too many. This would look stupid as well. Just make it look dirty. With shading, it's especially important to use reference. Just see where the shadows are in the original and try to imitate them. A general understanding of how shading on different objects works is pretty useful. For instance, we have our skull, and it's a circle in general and some kind of trapezoid thingy. A circle is darker around the edges. There are some light spots, and then it's generally like this. It moves down in circles, and it's always darkest around the edges, and of course on the side where there is no light. I'm just adding some hatching lines so you can understand this more easily. It's always darkest here. So generally speaking, this is what it would look like. I hope you can see what I'm pointing out. And the same works here as well. If the light comes from here, maybe there is some on the jaw. And this side is darker. And there's some darkness here because the chin stands out a bit. Same goes for the teeth. If the lighting comes from the same direction, the light should be here, and this part should be in darkness. A little bit of shade here. If you want me to do a tutorial on shading, please let me know in the comments. As of now, I'm not sure what is useful to you, so your feedback helps a lot. And then there's the next tooth, same here. Now that is roughly what it would look like. Let's apply this to our skull. The light comes from here, so this part has to be in darkness. Here's the light. It's darkest here. This is all in darkness. And this is in darkness as well. The nose is in darkness. It's a hole. For your shading, if you have trouble shading, try using a darker pencil. Now, if you have been working on HB, try 2B or try 4B for shading now. To make this stand out, this part has to be dark, and this part too. Not as dark as the other side, because actually there is light on there, but because it's further behind, it has to be a bit more grayish. Around here as well, but don't go into our light spot. This has to be very bright. This side has to be darker. As you go, you can always add some little dentures and structures and holes and whatever. Just experiment a bit with your shading. Do you see that? It already makes it pop. Let's make this a bit darker. There has to be some shadow here as well, not too much. Here and here. This is actually the eyebrow line. Let's use some hatching for now to make it look a bit more dynamic. Let's add some texture here. And this texture adds darkness to your drawing, and darkness is always shadow in a way too. Yeah, as you can see, my skull would need to see a dentist, but you get how it is done. I can correct it if you want. Let's draw down the teeth a bit more so they match. Let's add some more shadows to the teeth. Here around the edges where the root begins. And again, every tooth must have a shading like that. So some here, some here, some here, some here. These teeth are a bit more in the dark because the light comes from here. And the same goes for the lower teeth. Right, now that looks pretty decent. Actually, I didn't intend to make a metal skull with this one, but if I look at it, somehow it just reeks of metal. I don't really know how this always happens to me, but yeah, why not? Okay, let's make it really pop, and let's really finish this drawing now. It already looks pretty decent, but it's still somehow 2D. Can you guess the problem with this drawing? If you thought about the shadow missing, you are on the right track. The light comes from here. Let's add some shadow here to really make it stand out from the paper and show that this is a 3D object. I know it's not that naturalistic that you want to touch it. With those teeth anyway, I wouldn't. But it really helps. With the light coming from here, I'd expect the shadow to be here. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be accurate. No one would check that anyway, because you cannot really calculate that. Just make it roughly have an expected form. If you have a skull, what you wouldn't want to do is a shadow which has a rectangular form. For instance, it has to be round, because the skull is round as well. So the light comes from here. Actually, it has to go a bit further to the back. The further in the foreground, the darker, and the further you get into the background, make the shadow a bit lighter. So let's start dark here. This part here is what you would call the core shadow. This is the darkest part. Guys, I'd say good job. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Please stay tuned for the next tutorials and let me know in the comments how you like them and what you would like to see next on my channel. Bye bye!